Previously, we mentioned a few ways in which the church's physical environment can be made to be more autism-friendly, and now we'll continue that discussion by looking more in-depth into specific parts of both the sensory and physical environments that can be altered to be more accommodating. As we learned before, neurodiverse people might have sensory sensitivities that are different from those of neurotypical people. For example, sounds might be perceived as a lot louder or a lot quieter than they are by the general population. So how might we address this within the church setting? Well, you might first think about music volumes during songs of worship or musical interludes, recognizing that organ and choir music can often be quite loud and overwhelming even for neurotypical church members. Noise-canceling headphones are a great way to provide those who are sensitive to loud noises with a way to be more comfortable in a loud environment. These could be made available to members of the congregation in multiple specific and clearly labeled locations of the church. Hearing devices that are regularly used by the hard of hearing might also be made available to those who are less sensitive to noise or would like to tune out background noises from the congregation. Greeting times during the service and when entering and exiting the church can also be loud and uncomfortable for autistic church members. Not only can they be noisy, but they also usually involve a lot of handshaking or hugging that can be unpleasant, startling, or even painful for those with high sensitivities. One way to make it more clear to the congregation who is comfortable with conversing during these times is by providing communication badges that members can opt to wear. These badges can be worn around the neck or as a pin or sticker, and they usually come in 3 colors that have different meanings assigned to each. Red badges mean that the person would not like for others to talk to them, so it's best to let them be. Yellow badges mean that the person would only like to talk to people they know or recognize, so strangers shouldn't initiate an interaction. And green badges mean that the person is open to conversation and they don't mind talking and meeting new people. Another way to address this issue is by making a second entrance or exit available to the congregation. This could be deemed the quiet entrance that people who prefer not to converse could use to avoid the crowded, noisier entrance. Another part of the sensory environment we might consider are bright fluorescent lights, which can be annoying to the general population, but can be especially disturbing to those with visual sensitivities. It's better for a room to have a softer yellow lighting, even sometimes relying on natural sunlight, which isn't quite as harsh and unsettling as the white light produced by fluorescent bulbs. Sudden changes in light level can also be jarring for people with higher sensitivities, so it's best to announce when you're going to be turning lights on or off, or when something may be very bright. This will allow people to prepare themselves for any dramatic change in sensory information, helping them to better regulate their sensory perception. You might be able to brainstorm other ways in which you could create a more friendly sensory environment, such as asking the congregation to limit their perfume and cologne use so that the aroma of the church isn't too overwhelming. You might also make an effort to keep the temperature of the church at a comfortable level, as some autistic members might have trouble with their own body temperature regulation. Another way to be more autism-friendly that can be applied to any environment is by creating more organization and structure. Sometimes it can be hard to figure out what to do or where to go simply by drawing from context clues. You can eliminate this hassle in your own church by clearly labeling things such as bathrooms, Bible study rooms, offices, where certain books or documents are, where people can sit, etc. If your church doesn't do this already, then you might consider typing up a worship service program that members can use to know what will be happening during the service. It's important that these programs are accurate, and the more detail the better. You might include directions for when to sit, stand, or kneel, when the whole congregation is supposed to speak versus when just the church leader is supposed to speak, when to sing or not to sing, what tithing is, and how much a person might give during an offering. Anything else you think a general member of the congregation should know would be great to write down for people to reference. These directions work best when the written words are also paired with pictures or some visual representation, so that people who can't read or find it difficult at times can absorb the information in a more concrete way. Finally, environments that allow people to move around freely are very friendly to those who are neurodiverse. Many churches require that a person sit still for at least an hour, but this can be quite challenging or even impossible for many people. Autistic and other church members would greatly benefit from having a space in which they can move freely and make some noise if they felt like it. We want to promote inclusivity in churches and stray away from segregating services, but in this case a separate room might be a more conducive and comfortable space where the member can worship. It would also be helpful to have another room designated as a sensory room, where members could go to regulate their sensory processes if they feel overwhelmed by anything. Sensory rooms are usually softly lit, quiet spaces, with various sensory toys and activities that people can use to calm down and feel better. When your church discusses how to be more accessible and accommodating, you'll probably be able to generate many other creative ideas that were not mentioned in this video. As stated before, if you have any questions about what supports or alterations a family might like, it would be a great idea to ask them directly what they need. They can give you specific answers to your questions and probably have some great practical solutions as well.